Hi everyone, I'm Hengchen Dai. I'm a professor at Anderson School of Management at UCLA. I think someone is mowing their lawn outside, so you might hear some background noise, which I hope will stop sometime soon. So today I'm going to talk about prosocial goal pursuit in crowdfunding context, okay? And this research was conducted on Kickstarter platform, which is one of the biggest reward-based crowdfunding platform. So let me first tell you a little bit about reward-based crowdfunding, just in case not everyone is familiar with this context. And reward-based crowdfunding is a popular financing mechanism whereby creators, those people are entrepreneurs, they create a project and elicit capital or money from customers or potential customers, or more precisely, backers. Okay, backers are the supporters of those entrepreneurial projects. And Kickstarter is the largest reward-based crowdfunding website. On that website, about 460,000 projects have been launched, and $4.5 billion have been collected from 70 million backers so far, based on Kickstarter's own statistics. And on this website, creators create a project page, and they can set the amount of funding goals they would like to reach, and the rewards they would like to offer to backers. And creators also set their own campaign deadline, and by the deadline, backers decide whether or not they would contribute to a project, as well as at which point during the campaign they would contribute to a project. And backers also select a reward that they would like to get, right? It could be a product, for example, in the snapshot I showed you on the right-hand side of the slide. As a backer, you can receive different versions of this product that the creator is going to make, okay? And the reward normally determines the minimum amount, talking about minimum amount of contribution that Jill asked earlier. Like on this platform, usually different level of rewards are connected with a different minimum amount of contribution. And backers, one thing that's important to this research is backers can contribute to a project even after the project's funding goal has been met, okay? So it means even if a creator has already met its funding goal, people can continue contributing to it. And if a funding goal is met before the campaign deadline, campaign succeeds, and backers will pay their contributions, and creators will receive the full funding, and they are supposed to deliver reward later. But if funding goal is not met before the deadline, the campaign fails. And the Kickstarter adopts an all or nothing policy, such that if a campaign fails, backers pay nothing, and creators also receive zero funding. Okay? So in this context, there is an interesting question. Well, there are multiple, but I'm going to focus on one primary interesting question. And the question is whether backers only care about the benefits they will receive, or whether they also care about creators' funding goals, whether they are prosocial, and to what extent they are prosocial, okay? And how do those two opposing forces affect people's helping behavior and their contribution patterns? And what type of projects are more likely to elicit backers' desire to help creators? So in the past, there is a lot of research and discussion about people's self-interest on a reward-based platform. After all, people are there to receive rewards. It's like you can buy early bird version of those cool products, right? So if people only care about their own benefits, what would be our prediction in this context? Well, people may be more likely to contribute if other people's contribution are higher, right? So that means people hurt. It's like mental hurting. You feel when other people are contributing, you do the same thing, right? It's like conformity. Or another possibility is people are more likely to contribute if a project has already reached its funding goal, right? That elicits, that gives you certainty. If a project has not reached the funding goal yet, you don't know whether or not the project will be successful. So if you investigate the project and spend money on it, it could be a waste of your time, right? So people might be willing to wait until the project has just reached funding goal and then they contribute. So if those two things happen, what we would expect is that in comparing those two scenarios, when a project is only 95% funded versus when a project is 105% funded, we should expect people to be more likely to contribute to the project when it is 105% funded, right? Because at that time, more backers have already contributed and the project has already reached its funding goal. However, as probably everyone who sits here would recognize that people do not just care about their own benefits. Social preference also matter. So we hypothesize that backers may also want to help creators with their ventures rather than just winning rewards themselves. And in particular, people are more willing to help others when they believe that their actions can have a greater impact on other people, on the recipient of their help. And in this context, creators' funding goals may be salient reference points to backers, right? And we know that reference points matters. People are more willing to exert effort where they're below a reference point, below their goal, than when they just reach their goal. And we expect the same thing to happen, such that backers may think it's more important for them to help and they can make a bigger difference before a project has met its funding goal than after the project has met its funding goal. And as a result, we would expect backers to be willing to exert more effort to help the creators before a project has reached its goal. Okay, so more precisely, if we use the same example on the previous page, what we would predict is if people have strong social preference and care about creators' prosocial goal, we should see that people contribute to the project more eagerly when it is 95% funded than when it is 105% funded. Okay, again, if people are only concerned about their own economic interest, the rewards they can get, we would predict the opposite. So which one is the dominant force? Okay, so that is the question I'm going to empirically address. So our prediction is the desire to help creators reach their goal is going to have a stronger impact than people's economic interest. So it's going to have a strong force than herding and the success certainty. Okay, as a result, we anticipate funds to be collected faster before rather than after funding goals are met. And how are we going to test this idea? Well, we scraped funding progress of about 30,000 projects that were launched in 2016 and 2017 over the course of almost 1 year. And we analyzed 5,500 projects that progressed from 95% to 105% of funding goals. And we compared the time those projects took to progress from 95% to 100% versus from 100% to 105% of their funding goals. So you guys can see this illustration here. So assuming this is the progress of a project, right? The project collect more and more money over the course of the campaign. And T1 represents the time the project took to progress from 95% to 100%, assuming that 800 is the funding goal of this project. And then the T2 represents the time the project took to progress from $800 to which is 100% to 105%, okay? And then we compare T1 and the T2 to know whether funds are collected faster before a project has met its goal versus after the project has met its goal. Okay, so here is our first finding. Indeed, consistent with our hypothesis, funds are collected faster right before goal achievement. So before projects have met its goal, on average, they need 7.6 hours to reach, to collect 5% of its funding goal. And after a project met its funding goal, on average, it took the project 33 hours to collect 5% of the funding goal. Okay, and this is a statistically significant difference. And in our further analysis, we can control for other things that may be different between those two situations, right? So for example, maybe creators are more eager to advertise its project. So we can control for how many times those creators update, like make updates on Kickstarter, and how many times those project creators tweet about their project on Twitter and encourage other people to come to contribute to their project. So basically, we can contribute for those marketing efforts, and we can also contribute for some other things. And when we control for other factors as much as we can, we find that it takes 140% more time to progress from 100% to 105% than from 95% to 100%. Okay? And so for further analysis, I'm going to use this benchmark. So basically, I'm going to use the same analytical framework and regression model to do further analysis that I'm going to show in a moment. So precisely, the first thing I do next to use the same model is to look at how different types of project would exhibit this effect. So basically, oh, sorry, oops, I jumped ahead of myself. That is going to be the next slide. So on this slide, what I'm going to show is to use the similar model to look at a slightly different outcome. So the first outcome I look at is how much time it took a project to gain one new backer, okay? So why do I look at this? Well, on the previous slides, what I show you is funds are collected faster before a goal is met. But there are two possible reasons, right? One is more people are willing to come to contribute. And the other is conditional on people contributing, they would contribute more money, right? So we want to separate out those two forces. So the first thing we look at is how many people are willing to contribute. To do this, we just look at how quickly it is for a project to gain one new backer. Okay, we find that actually projects need more time to get one new backer during the post-go period compared with the pre-go period. What that means is contribution rates are higher before goal is reached than after the goal is reached. And then the other thing, as I mentioned, is conditional on supporting a project, whether people are willing to give a larger amount before the goal is reached. And our answer is yes, the contribution size is smaller during the post-go period compared to the pre-go period, which means contribution amounts are higher before the goal is reached than after the goal is reached. Okay. So to summarize, what this means is funds are collected faster because people are both more willing to contribute and they contribute more before a goal is reached than after the goal is reached. And the next thing we look at is to use the same model, apply it to different project categories to see whether the results hold for all categories and whether there are differences across categories. So here are the 15 major project categories on Kickstarter. All right, so we have crafts, design, games, and so on one side, on the left side, and on the right side, projects that have bigger effects are music, dance, theater, and journalism. And here are two patterns I want to point out. One is the results are generally robust, such that for all the categories, we see that projects took more time to progress from 100% to 105 to 95% to 100%. I should have noted that the y-axis represents how much more time does it take a project to progress from 100 to 105 versus 95 to 100. So if the value is positive, it means it takes more time to collect 5% of money after a goal has been reached, right? So the fact that all the categories have a value bigger than 0 and 14 out of those 15 categories have a statistically significant value above 0 means that for most of them, in fact, all of them, it takes more time to progress from 100 to 105. And then the next pattern I want to point out is there is heterogeneity, right? There is a variation in the effect size across those categories. So the next question that I think is interesting is what drives this difference, right? Why large variance exists? And one thing that I looked at is the extent to which those project categories elicit contribution because they make people want to help. Okay, so there are a few ways to test this idea. One thing I did is I asked the Kickstarter backers. I conducted a survey among backers online, and I asked them for each of those categories, why do you contribute money to them? Why do you back them, right? Do you back them because you want to help the creators, right? Or do you back them because you want to earn rewards? Or do you back them because you think it is interesting? So those projects tend to have uncertainty, and you really like uncertainty. You think it is cool to pursue projects that have uncertainty, right? So I give them different reasons. I have people rate why they contribute, to what extent it is because a given reason. So one thing I find is that the effect generally is stronger when people back projects in a category out of a pro-social motivation. Okay, so that in other words, statistics speaking, the effect size largely correlate with the extent to which people want to help creators in a given project. Sorry, in a given product category. Okay, and that is consistent with my theory earlier that I talked about, right? The idea is, why do I see this effect? It is because people want to help others reach their goal. So as a result, it's not surprising that I find, it's important but not surprising that I find, indeed, it is the project that people want to help more that has a stronger effect, okay? And then the next methods I use to test this idea is to look at whether a project explicitly asks for help. So this is a snapshot of a project's website. I only showed you the upper part of this website. On this platform, for this project, you can see a word help, right? So basically this person is asked for help. And here is another example. This creator also asked for help. So in the short description of the project, specifically, they say, I want your help, okay? And there are, so my question is whether when a project asks for help, they are more likely to get help, okay? So indeed, what I find is if a project mentions the word help, the project we would see a bigger difference before and after a project has met its funding goal, okay? So that indeed suggests willingness to help is a mechanism behind the effect. The final thing I look at is whether project creator status would create a different effect. So prior research suggests that people are more willing to help another person, or when the recipient of the help is a very specific person, right, rather than a large and a vaguely defined group. So for this, we asked online respondent to rate whether a creator is a single person versus multiple people. So we show them a picture and a name. So for example, on the left-hand side, in this example, it's clearly a single person. And on the right-hand side, the example represents an organization rather than a single person, okay? And we expect the results to be stronger for those people who are a single person because people are more willing to help them before they reach their goal. As a result, we should see a bigger difference before than after, before versus after a project reach the funding goal. Okay, so this is consistent with prior research suggesting that people are willing to help a single victim. So to summarize, we find that funding speed is faster, is larger before a goal has been met for a project. And this difference is driven by both changes in contribution rates and contribution amount. And the effect is stronger if a project category tends to elicit pro-social motivation, or if the description triggers pro-social motivation, such as by mentioning the word help, and when a creator is a single person. So how can we leverage this in your context and possibly test these ideas? One thing is that people care about their impact on a fundraising project, right? And how do we leverage this? Well, we can concretely display how donors benefit the project, so people would feel really great about their impact and they're more willing to make a contribution. And we can also create transparency about how the fund is used, right? That is also a way for people to know how they are making an impact. The other thing we can learn from this project is others' goals are a salient reference point. People not only care about their own goals, and they also care about others' goals. And so we can take this into account in platform design. For example, Kickstarter or other fundraising platforms you guys may have can make it salient others' goals, as well as how much progress have been made, so people can see the progress, and they can even search projects based on goal proximity. And you can also alter the timing of new projects, right? So when new projects are going to be launched, you can figure out when you should launch the project, so you can reduce competition between projects, between those projects that are close to their funding goals and are going to attract attention, versus those new projects that really need attention. And also simple words like help can mobilize action in situations when people are expecting personal benefits, right? So you might consider using words that tend to elicit empathy and willingness to help. And finally, we know that people are more willing to support a single person. So on websites, on those fundraising websites, highlighting single person status may help requesters, may lead requesters to receive more funding. Okay, and that is all I have for you. And thank you for your attention.